Y'all, today we need to talk about a part of the most recent update that nearly nobody is talking about. Parts of this update irritated me so much that I think it would be a disservice not to make a video about it, so let's get right into it. Topic of the day, gold keys. Now, if you didn't know, the raid portals that I'm looking at right now, I'm in my guild house, I'm looking at the raid portals. In the most recent update, they made these into portals that could also be used to farm gold key bosses. Now, if you guys don't know about gold keys at all, they're actually very, very game changing. There's a lot of ways to get them, and for each key you can run it up with 3 other people, get drops and spell elements. And some of these spell elements, right, they're no joke, right? Like there's iconic spells like Lore Master that when you max tier actually hit like a brick in PvP. And let's say you want to say screw the utility, you just want damage for PvE. There's a lot of spells like Ninja Piglets also you'd want to farm for. What they've gotten into the habit of doing as well is they put a lot of gear sets behind these gold key bosses. The TLDR is gold key bosses are something that most people want to farm. Now the big critique is that to get a gold key boss farming session happening, you also need a lot of gold keys, and the access to those until recently has been very, very minimal. So they made these portals into things that you could farm gold key bosses with. Now, how exactly do you make this portal into something where you could farm, like, you know, gold key bosses in? This is where we get to the irritating part. They added a crafting recipe, and let's be very, very fair, right? Some of the crafting recipes for raid keys are actually really, really crazy. Like the amount of Azot that you have needed, the amount of summons you have to farm for, it's actually very tedious. But this is their recipe, except now it's for gold keys. Now keep in mind, in order to make one of these keys to open one of these portals to farm Drowned Dan, for example, for 2 hours, you still need 10 gold keys. Now keep in mind, right, this is very, very important. Let's say that you were to use those 10 keys on the actual drowned boss, like Dan boss, right? If you farmed with 3 other people for the full 2 hours, you would also get some gold key drops back. Like one of those 4 people on any of those 10 runs could get a gold key back. So really, I would argue that 10 gold keys is worth well over 10 runs if you do it the normal way. But there are certain advantages to having a portal open in a guild, right? If y'all didn't know, even though 4 people might go into a portal, after a little bit of time, it'll reset and you can actually open the portal again with 4 more people. So that one, like, you know, portal key, it could work for well over 4 people, which is really, really good. But for that slight advantage that requires a lot of organization, they made the recipes to actually make these keys, not just 10 gold keys, but tons of different types of Azot. Now, I'm going to explain this because most people do not know how these things work. You basically start off with regular Azot. You can actually get this as a drop from many, many bosses throughout the spiral. And you could craft the regular Azot for 8 apiece into elemental, harmonic, or spiritual Azot. So this is like the tier 2 Azot. And then after you've crafted 5 of those, you can craft school-specific Azot. And by the way, in order to get these recipes for the school Azot, you have to just keep crafting and just get a lucky ass drop. I wish I was making this up, but yeah, it's literally you just have to keep clicking extract Azot over and over and over again. You essentially need to be using an elixir that doesn't let you, you know, have cooldown when you craft, because the cooldown is a lot. And every many hundreds recipes, maybe dozens and dozens of, you know, craftings, you might be lucky enough to get a school Azot crafting recipe. Now, I'm a whiz head. Y'all know this. I don't even have all of the school Azot recipes. And what do several of these recipes have in common? They require you to make school-specific Azot. There's some weird inconsistencies here and there, but I think the root of the matter is you're still gonna need a ton of Azot, I think, you know, to make one of these keys. But I'll say this, if it's a boss that you can run very, very fast and Azot itself isn't an issue, I actually think some of these keys are worth it. If the recipe doesn't require school-specific Azot, and it's a very, very easy boss to one turn like King Boar, I could actually see a 2-hour key with maybe just 2 groups of people using the gates back and forth. That could actually be a ton of value, right? It's not just 4 people benefiting, it's 8, and it's also probably worth more than 10 keys doing the regular way. 2 hours, you could probably do way over 10 runs. In fact, you could probably do like 20. But anytime these recipes require school-specific Azot, you create a barrier where the person crafting the key has to be the one person that's always crafting for the guild, because no one else will have the recipe. Beyond that, to my knowledge, there's no way to trade over gold keys? And if there is, I assume there's some way to do it with the shared bank in a guild. It's very, very tedious. There's no item trading between players. If they're gonna push something like this, where a bunch of people are supposed to collaborate on keys and Azot and all of that and work together on a portal for 2 hours, item trading needs to be added into the game. I think this is something a lot of people have been asking for, and I think logistically it's a nightmare because you open the door to a whole lot of stuff, right? Let's say that someone wants to have bad intentions. You can trick someone into giving you a rare item by giving them, like, you know, maybe not so rare of an item back, and like you could trick them basically. So I do think there needs to be, I don't know, some parameters where you can't trade things of super unequal value between each other. But I think gold keys, I don't really see why you shouldn't be able to trade them pretty freely between players in a guild. So that's one very big annoyance, right? Having 10 keys or even like, you know, yeah, 5 keys for an hour or 10 keys for 2 hours for a recipe, that's actually quite a bit to expect out of one person. And the Azot crafting recipes, since each of these school Azot is worth 8 of these, like, you know, tier 2 Azots, I don't see why don't they just shift the value of the amount of total Azot you need over to these. That makes way more sense because not everyone has these recipes. And then also, I do think they need to lower the overall amount of Azot that these need, because I think 2 hours just isn't as much as you're not going to get back all the Azot that you put into this, which I think would be ideal if you had like 2 groups of people using a gate to farm. I think it's extremely ambitious to expect this much organization for a gold key boss of all things. I actually like that they're giving us, like, you know, more incentives to be in a guild. I like that they're giving us like a new way to farm gold key bosses. It's probably more close to home when it comes to how people have farmed gear before, right? They just go into a sigil and farm, you know, like, yes, there's a time limit, but you don't really need to keep getting gold keys if you can make this, you know, one recipe, right? Some of it is really, really cool. Some of the recipes even, I would argue, aren't even that bad. I think if you want to farm the Spirit of Ignorance boss, which drops Splash Squatch, Berry, Surprise, Camp Bandit, all spells that I think people use in PvP, it's actually a pretty reasonable thing, right? Like, there's no extra Azot you have to craft. I think for 2 hours, you could probably do well, you could do well over the 10 runs that you could normally do the normal way. Recipes like this make sense, so I don't understand how they made this recipe a thing. And then they also made, like, this recipe a thing. It like, literally, where's the consistency? Why are some of these bosses treated differently? Overall, I really hope they update this, but this is something that is now an option, especially if you're in a guild, or if you want to make a guild in order to farm gold key bosses, especially if you want to really maximize your keys. Is it a cool new concept? Yes, I think it's extremely flawed. I think there's a lot of ways that Azot crafting could be a lot better, less RNG related, but I did want to talk about it because it is cool. It does have flaws. I wanted to give my feedback on it. What I hope is that there's a version of this that's more accessible, doesn't have as much of a barrier of entry, because it's already pretty hard to get into a guild or form a guild to begin with. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts. Hopefully I explained this because it's a brand new concept. Hopefully I explained it well. But let me know what y'all's thoughts are on this. And if you get how the recipes work, what do you think about the actual, like, you know, amount of effort that goes into the recipe? And do you plan on using this feature to get spell elements or special gear from any gold key boss where these recipes apply? I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, see y'all soon, and yeah.